I would like to put one stipulation in, just so that's not a complete derailment. If you say a name and I'm like, what the fuck? I am allowed an image search, and I am not allowed to click on anything. I'm just allowed to hit the image search.
Completely. I did not go super deep this time.
Okay, all right. Just because I don't want it to be like unfun for the listeners either, of just me being like, I don't know who you're talking about. What? And welcome back to the Men of Steel podcast. I'm Case Aiken, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Jmike Folson.
So happy to have everyone back today. You know, one day I'm going to have a little jingle to go along with this.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do have the theme for the show, but yeah, like having a little jingle for yourself. Oh, you mean for
my own personal introduction thing, yeah.
Yeah, like a specific theme for you.
Yeah, one day it'll happen.
Yes, I am sure one day. Yeah, so today we thought it was a good time for a pop quiz.
I've done one of these in forever.
I know. I actually had to look up to see what the last one was, and it's been a couple months. It was episode 74, which was Pop Quiz 7. So this is Pop Quiz 8 for us. Yeah. Huh. And for the record, this is somewhere in the ballpark range of like episode 113, 114. We number these episodes because we would have to internally anyway. And for whatever reason, I decided to put those on the show art and on the show descriptions. But this is not a show that really cares if you're listening in order or anything like that. Aside from like obvious, like, hey, we're talking about the death of Superman today. And next week we're talking about the return of Superman kind of stuff. But those are
few and far between. You don't want them to go from Spy Wonder Woman to the death and return of Superman, the video game?
If someone wants to just like put their podcast episodes on shuffle, I'm totally here for it. But for listeners who have tuned in for the first time since the last time we did a pop quiz, the idea is that Jmike is going to bring 3 characters. He's going to drop their name, and he's going to see how much I can rattle off just with completely unprepared for however long I can go about any particular character. And it's going to be kind of similar to the way that we do the Superman analog videos, where it's like, here's what I think is important if you just ask me to say a thing about a character. And I will try to be as comprehensive as I can, or at least like give a summary that I think would be like, if you, a layman, needed to find out about this character, this is what is relevant. And sometimes that's funny stories. Sometimes that's more about the creators. Sometimes that's, you know, whatever. But that's the basic idea. So it has been a while. I'm kind of excited. The last time Jmike aggressively tried to stump me, which was not fun for anyone, because the goal is not to stump me. The goal is just to see what I can rattle off the top of my head.
Listen, man. I got tired of never being able to get you at least once. Okay.
That's true. There was the first couple you were like, I've got 2 that are like slow pitches, and then this one you're not going to get. And the third one would be like, yeah, I got that one.
Dang it, man. Yeah.
But it's been a while, and I'm excited to do this one. And it's always fun to do these. And I need to get as much fun in as I can right now, because I'm about to be very sleep deprived for 18 years, but especially for a couple months.
I was trying to say, I was going to be nice and say a while. You went long range.
But yeah, I'm excited for all this and excited for the future that's in front of us, but also just like, oh wow, who knows? Quiz. All right, so Jmike, without further ado.
All right. I feel like this one should be pretty easy for you, and I hope I pronounced this right. First hero we're going to talk about first tonight is Coagula.
I am going to do a search.
Right off the bat?
I'm also curious on the spelling side of it all. Oh, okay. This one's kind of embarrassing because we did a story with the character, but I don't fucking remember shit about it.
Yeah. I was like, I feel like we talked about her group, but I don't know if we talked about her specifically. We're talking about one of the characters from Doom Patrol.
Yeah, so Coagula. So yeah, this is a really timely character to bring up. And it's a little embarrassing because I don't super know the character that well, even though we actually covered a story with the character, because we talked about the Rachel Pollack run of Doom Patrol way back in episode 51-ish, which was around the time we were doing all the Wonder Woman stuff, but we did it as a crossover for the release of Cyberpunk, which was a big network-wide event that started off as a video game tie-in that we were doing, and then we were like, I don't know if we want it to be with a studio that's getting a bit of heat, but we kind of were like locked into a lot of like cyberpunk programming, and we wanted to like support trans creators. So Rachel Pollack is notable for being one of, if not the first mainstream writer who was trans. And also it is timely because I'm not sure at this point of recording if she has actually passed away, but it was discussed pretty widely on social media. So she's been in the news a lot recently. Like this weekend, there were a lot of posts about her. But most of those were saying that her health was failing and that it was imminent. So I haven't seen anything specific on that one. That said, Coagula is a member of the Doom Patrol. Not a character who has been revisited much since then. This was an era that was very cool and edgy in Vertigo Comics, and since then DC Comics has not liked it to be quite so edgy. Even with the popularity of Doom Patrol the show, like it's a surprisingly edgy show, but it is not surprisingly edgy compared to what the comics could get to. Rachel Pollack was handpicked by Grant Morrison to replace them on Doom Patrol and brought like a very interesting aesthetic. Like Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol run is known for being like pretty fucking out there, and Rachel Pollack's run is more which is a lot. Morrison's is like testing you to be able to like follow what's going on. Rachel Pollack's is assuming that you're not going to. Like the professor's head is like a severed thing. There's like duplicate bodies. There's all kinds of crazy. It's going even weirder. And Coagula is a character who is pretty cool and pretty unique. Coagula is a trans lesbian who has powers to coagulate things, to like bring it together alchemically in one hand and dissolve it in the other. And I don't know that much about like the extent of it all, frankly, because we looked at the first arc in Rachel Pollack's run and didn't go much further. And like, it's always been a series I want to go back and reread, but like I never finished the Grant Morrison run in the first place. Like back when I was collecting, I read the first couple trades and was like, this is great. And then I just sort of like fell off somewhere, I think because college, like, I just didn't have disposable income. And then Pollack's run, I was like, yeah, no, I would totally continue this. I just haven't because there's not enough hours in the day. So that's where we're sitting on that one. I can't really say that much more about the character beyond the big ticket items, because I know the basic description and I was introduced to the character at that point in the run, and that is about where we got.
I do know that she wears a frog head because I read that up on her when I was looking at this character. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. She always has a little frog head costume on. And I was like, yep, that's something that Doom Patrol would do.
Yep, that sounds about right. Yeah, I don't want to pretend that I'm like in any way giving any kind of authority on this one. Like this is entirely me just going off of like a quick like, oh, right, yes, okay, cool. Like kind of thing here. Like it took a minute with a name. It took,
You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah. But I like that you're like, oh yeah, I teed up like a really slow pitch for you. And immediately it's like, hang on. I think I've got the one sentence blurb and that's about it.
Well, in that case, let's just go on to the next one then.
Oof. Yeah. Okay. Well,
this one should be pretty easy, I think. Hopefully.
Okay.
We're going to start next with Jesse Quick.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Jesse Quick is easy. Okay, thank God. All right, I'm sorry. The Rachel Pollack Doom Patrol run is just one that I still need to really read, and like it's also like one where you need to be like in that mode because it's real fucking weird. Meanwhile, Jesse Quick is comics royalty legacy. I don't know, like a legacy character, and also a big part of the Mark Waid Flash run, which I love. So I'm intimately familiar with this character. So Jessie Quick is the daughter of Johnny Quick and of Liberty Bell, who were two Golden Age superheroes. We talked about both of them and their very troubled relationship when we talked about the Golden Age, the Elseworld series, sometimes called JSA, the Golden Age. And so she is part of the Flash family because she's a speedster and has been around a lot. At one point, she was picked to be the next Flash after Wally, although that sort of has like come and gone and blah, blah, blah. She joined the JSA for a while in the 2000s under the Geoff Johns run, wherein for a time, I think she had lost her speed, or maybe she could only use her speed sometimes. Either way, she had manifested the super strength from her mother and was going by Liberty Bell at that point, which is like fine. I've seen some versions of her costume which have been like fusions of the two looks, and like that's pretty cool because I actually think like the overall package is really interesting, but it has the taint of Geoff Johns trying to like force her into being kind of like a specific kind of legacy character that kind of bugs me. And at this point, I'll note that while in that whole period, she had a romantic relationship with Rick Tyler, the second Hour Man. And that was like a really nice couple. And that sort of got wiped away once we got to Flashpoint in New 52. I'm not sure where they're at in the current JSA run that Geoff Johns is doing. I wouldn't be surprised if they're there. In fact, I'm pretty sure they are. Somewhere. Because they're big characters. But like, I haven't looked at it yet, so I can't actually say. So here's the deal. Again, she is Johnny Quick's daughter, and most of her thing is being the next Quick, which means that she has the same abilities. But it's not really an inheritance thing, because Johnny Quick's powers, if you'll recall, aren't innate. Johnny Quick's powers are, he says a mathematical formula, and visualizing the math is what gives him super speed. And this is where you're going to think I'm insane, because I swear to God, I am not reading this out loud. The formula is 3x2 9yz 4a. And Jmike, you can look that one up right now.
Let's say it again.
3x2 9yz 4a.
9yz 4.
If you just look up Jesse Quick or Johnny Quick, you will see that their formula is that.
Yep.
Yep, motherfucking redemption after that first one.
It's like the first thing that pops up with
Yep,
him.
fucking insane, right? I am a crazy man. Anyway, that's my redemption for only like kind of knowing who you're talking about for the first one. All right, so Jesse Quick, again, like being a JSAer, her parents were aged kind of slowly, particularly Johnny because of speed things. Johnny Quick ultimately died during the Dead Heat arc of Flash, where he joined the Speed Force. But before that, she had already been sort of like appointed to be the next Flash by Wally, back when he thought he was going to join the Speed Force. And so for a while, she was wearing like a Flash costume, but wearing like a blue jacket with it, because like her look had been like, wear a jacket and then like kind of a Johnny Quick style kind of outfit. And then you get to the 2000s and she's wearing like a Liberty Bell design with the cool detail of the Liberty Bell logo, the crack in the Liberty Bell instead being a lightning bolt, so that it like evoking like kind of the Flash family thing, which I thought was a really cool detail. So from her mom, she has super strength. And basically, like, I think the deal was like, if she heard the ring of the Liberty Bell, she gained super strength, was like the deal for the original. And I think that's like passed on to her. But either way, super strength. It's not like crazy vast super strength, but it's enough to be like, yeah, she's super strong. That's pretty cool. And then from Johnny, she gets super speed. But Johnny has a particular type of super speed. So for one thing, he is slower than the Flash, has always been slower than the Flash. Now, when we're talking about characters who are able to approach the speed of light,
yeah,
who the fuck cares?
It's all relative.
But it matters when you're dealing with like Professor Zoom, who would joke that Johnny Quick was the slowpoke. Sure. Okay, cool. But I would honestly take Johnny Quick's speed over anyone else's, because he's able to run on air, so he could fucking fly. Which the other ones can't, and that's so much better. I would absolutely take that. Also, you can turn it off, which is like a problem for speedsters, like when they can't turn off their speed, because like then life is miserable. So that's a pretty good win there. So she, I don't know when she first showed up. I'm guessing it was during a Roy Thomas era of like Infinity Inc. or something, but I don't actually know for sure. Again, like me being a big Mark Waid fan, especially the Mark Waid Flash run, and Impulse, especially Impulse, very familiar with the character from that point on. It's the stuff before that where I'm like, I'm actually not sure like what her history up until that point was. But Mark Waid in the 90s was like, I need to bring all the speedsters together and like have them be around each other, because like you can do cool scenes with all these characters moving at super speed and doing stuff. So she became sort of a regular character at that point, and then she joined up with the Titans, like the adult Teen Titans, in the late 90s, like during like the DC 1 Million event. She was part of that team. So she was with Tempest, which was like the grown-up Aquaboy, Troya, Donna Troy, like what, like all that. Nightwing's team, like when he was leading like the grown-up original Teen Titans. So she was part of that crew, kind of filling in for Wally, because Wally was also on the JLA at the same time, so he couldn't always be there. So yay, there you go. Other character. And like I said, then when Geoff Johns is doing JSA and he wants to have every single character be a legacy character, yeah, that happened too. So she was there. And with all the Flash stuff since, like, I fucking hate that they brought Barry Allen back, so like I really checked out from a lot of that. So I couldn't tell you exactly what's been going on with her in the comics in more modern times. But yeah, that's her deal. She actually has been a strong and like a candidate for a Superman analog thread that I have been meaning to write for a very long time, because she has like really the big ticket items. Like, she's got super speed, she can fly, and she's super strong, and flashes are actually pretty durable. Like, they have an aura that they put around their bodies, so even though in theory they're not actually, like, invulnerable, like, for one thing, they're running at super speed in a way that would, like, destroy their bodies if it was actually moving at that speed. For another, like, they can take bullets directly to them, and it's like, oh, well, our vibrations absorbed it. That's not even getting into the vibrating through solid objects thing, which I think Jessie technically can't do, but that would only be because a writer decided she can't, and like she could the second a writer decided she could, kind of thing, you know? Like it's a super speed thing being like, oh, I finally did it. Because it's an established power that speedsters have. I mean, like, it's really not that far apart. Like, Johnny was trained by Max Mercury, who also trained Bard, and Max Mercury is like the master of using vibrations to like move through stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, so she's a really good candidate for like I guess she is technically kind of like a Superman analog type character. But being a speedster in the DCU, which has like a very specific, like, speedsters are this thing kind of concept, she's kind of like put off on that kind of side, unless she's emulating her mom, which, you know, Geoff Johns just wants every character to kind of look like characters he knew from the 70s, which makes me think that she probably showed up in All-Star Squadron or Infinity Inc. because, you know, Bronze Age DC is what Geoff Johns wants everything to be. So entirely possible, but I just don't remember. But yeah, that's Jessie Quick.
That was too easy for you.
Like, it's the seesaw, right? Like, where it's like, fuck, what, Coagula. Oh, right, Doom Patrol. Oh, versus like Jessie Quick. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I know shitloads about Jessie Quick. Side note, her real name is Jessie Chambers. Sorry, didn't mention that part, but that's her deal.
Okay, well, that thing lied to me. Ooh. Anyway. Let's see. How about we try for... I forgot the name of the team.
No, you can't blank on Kevin. You're supposed to have a list.
I was like, what do we... I forgot the team they're on. Guys from the future. Legion. There you go. Boom. We're going to do some Legion characters. We're going to do some Legion.
We're recording this week in an episode on the Legion.
We're going to do some Legion characters here. All right. I found a few characters that I had never heard of before from the Legion of Superheroes. I don't know how obscure they might be. They just sounded pretty cool. Let's see if you know what they are and what they do, Case. How about we try Night Girl first?
Night Girl. Okay, so she was initially a member of the Legion of Substitute Heroes, and if I remember correctly, her deal is she's super strong in the dark.
Yep. I was like, it's such a cool power, but like a not cool power at the same time.
I guess it depends on if you're in space, is it always dark, or are the stars light? Like, what's the question? Like, which way does that go?
You're fighting these guys, like you're like Batman. Like, she's like fighting like under a cowl and everything. And then somebody comes up with a flashlight and you're like, oh no, my powers.
Yeah. The thing with Night Girl is that she gets, first of all, she gets confused with, but more importantly, she's overlooked because of Shadowlass / Umbra, who has actual shadow powers and is also oftentimes Mon-El's girlfriend and is just like a feistier type character. Like, is just generally speaking more interesting versus like, oh, it's dark and I'm strong. So like that character tends to be like the one people focus on, and they're similar enough that it's like, oh wait, which character would, oh, I'm gonna look at the scantily clad blue skinned girl who has shadows like emanating from her, as opposed to the one who's like looks a little bit more mundane and is like the substitute version of that. I'm not putting down Night Girl, I'm just saying that like Shadowlass is more famous of the two.
It's like, that's such a, on one hand you're like, cool, I can be a hero or whatever, but like my weaknesses are candles, flashlights.
Well, I mean, that's actually not that weird of a trope. The Nighthawk character from Marvel, the first one specifically, because he's the one who then went on to be the leader of the Defenders for a while. That one specifically, darkness gave him super strength. And Professor Midnight from Supreme, from the Alan Moore run, also had the same deal, where he was like 3 times stronger in the dark. And then, not to mention Darkman, the Sam Raimi movie, played by Liam Neeson, who his deal is that he's stupid strong because all of his skin was burned off, and so he has adrenaline going like crazy because he's in constant pain, but also can't feel like actual external pain because, again, all of his skin is burned off. And the Darkman part is because he had perfected how to like make perfect fake skin, but it dissolves in light after like, I think it was an hour in the movies, and so he has to like stay in the darkness until it's time to like pretend to be someone else. Was the whole shtick in that movie. But yeah, like darkness as a superpower. It's the inverse of Superman.
Yeah. Well, her power is like, she's just strong in darkness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, on that note.
You want to give me a couple other
Yeah. On that note, how about a Rainbow Girl?
You know, I actually I can guess,
Yes.
but I don't actually know off the top of my head for that one.
Her name was Dory Anderson. She reminded me a little bit of Jubilee from the X-Men.
Yeah, all right. I've seen this character a lot. I actually don't know that much about her, so I could read off a description, but I mean, it's rainbow and emotions kind of powers. But it's one I don't really know that much about.
Wow, she's just like Jubilee. Sparkles. I was like, I didn't know there was another offshoot of Legion of Superheroes, like the Legion of Substitute Heroes.
Yeah, the subs. Yeah, so the Legion of Substitute Heroes were rejected applicants for the Legion of Superheroes for a variety of reasons, usually because their powers are like kind of lame. We actually saw them when we looked at the Legion cartoon, and they show up in the Great Darkness saga because they're like just out there and around. Generally speaking, their powers are considered like lame powers and thus not like quite cool enough to like make the cut, because like the Legion has like auditions to join. Except oftentimes, like, the powers that they have are actually, like, way cooler than what you would think. There's Infectious Lass, who is, like, gonna kill you. Like, she has plague powers. But it's like, well, we're not gonna allow her in.
Wait. So she has plague powers. Does she have, like, can she give you the antidote? That'd be kind of a cool
I think she
power to
can.
have.
I think she can, like, deactivate a sickness that she gives you. But it's still, like, the main power is that she can make you sick. Which, as we're all aware in this year of our Lord 2023... bad. Like pretty rough.
Into a room.
Stone Boy, for example, can turn to stone just like Pharaoh can turn to iron, except he's not able to move once he turns to stone.
He really just pulls a Kirby and just like falls right there into like a stone statue for a while.
Yes, that is the most effective way for him to use his powers. But the big standout is Polar Boy, who has ice powers. He was a little too weak for a long time, and that's why...
Polar Boy, you don't say.
Right. So he was a little like underpowered for a while, and he became the leader of the substitutes. And then he actually made the Legion in the 80s and became their leader. Like, he's the leader of the Legion when we read the Death of Superboy arc. And by the time we get to the 5-year gap, he actually is the leader of the Legion who has to disband the Legion during that whole arc. Because he eventually like matures into his powers. Apparently he ages slower than people because of his ice powers, so it like causes his body to like age at a slower rate, was like some of his deal. But yeah, so he's the big standout in the group, the big success story, like he actually goes on to achieve. But the idea behind the substitutes is always like, hey, we still want to do good, we're going to do our best, and we're trying our damnedest. And so like they pitch in big moments. Like, again, Great Darkness Saga, the world is being invaded by Daxamites. They're all there on the front lines. They're not doing that great, but every little bit helps, right?
I may or may not have had him on my list for today.
Oh, you did? Okay.
That's why I was like, Polar Boy. You don't say. Ah.
No, it's funny. Like, once I realized that you were doing substitute heroes and not the Legion of Superheroes, it was like, oh, okay, that's why. Yeah, Rainbow Girl's just one I don't know as much about. The subs are usually not the main characters in any story because, you know... Unless the story is the Legion is occupied, can the subs actually pull it off? And like, while there are a lot of those stories, because I haven't really like sat down and read like full runs of the Legion. In a lot of spots, I've read like the trades that came out that were specific stories, and then like there are more modern ones that I read the whole run of. I do see some like Gary Frank art from when they were doing like the retro boot era, so I'm sure they did some stuff with her, and probably. I'm guessing because it was Geoff Johns, and I see a note about like willpower for Green. I'm guessing there was like a lot of like emotion tie-in stuff with like the Green Lantern Corps and like the emotional spectrum core with her rainbow powers, but I just like don't know that much about her. You want to rattle off a couple others?
Yeah,
or...
I got a couple more.
Okay.
But I was like, you were talking, I was like, you know what? The Legion of Substitute Heroes reminds me of the sidekicks from Sky High.
Yep, yeah. I mean, that's a really cool archetype, you know? Like, heroes trying their damnedest even though their powers are like less cool.
I didn't know they had that. Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, like it makes sense. And it's like the cool thing with like Krakoa era like X-Men right now is like, all right, what mutants can be like seen in a different light, and like maybe it's not a combat power, but maybe it's really helpful, you know, like gold balls, where it turns out that the gold balls that he creates are actually eggs, and that's how they create the clones of everyone. Or Doug Ramsey, who can just learn any language. He doesn't like speak every language automatically. He can just learn any language. Like his power is like he can pick up on languages really fast. He helped them figure out the mutant language with Krakoa itself and became the voice of Krakoa because he's like, oh, I can fucking talk to you. Cool. All right.
I guess that would be a pretty cool power.
Yeah, lots of superpowers that are like, yeah, this would be lame for a superhero, would actually be like super useful in life.
To have that power, I'd be unstoppable.
You could go anywhere. You could speak with anyone.
no one would ever be able to talk about you in another language ever again. Like, aha!
Yeah.
Let's see. How about Kid Eternity?
Okay. Yeah. Wait. All right. Kid Eternity was a 90s, 2000s character who I mostly remember him from dying.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, he died at the beginning of it was the JSA art series that became the Geoff Johns JSA series, but at the time it was James Robinson and David Goyer who was writing it. And if I remember correctly, his ability is I want to say he can summon characters from stories.
Yeah. So I came across him doing research for this. I was like, this sounds like an interesting character. Because like the description I got was that he died during World War II after his boat was struck by lightning. But it wasn't time for him to die. So like, I'm saying, oops.
Yes. Okay. Oh shit. Yeah, he's a deep cut character. So sorry, I just looked him up. I was like, but I was right. He can summon mythological and historical figures. Is his deal. He's actually an Otto Binder character. Otto Binder is super influential writer for first working on the Captain Marvel books. He's the creator of Mary Marvel, and then he came over to DC and created Supergirl. And is like famous and like super influential in comics, and also had like one of the saddest life when his like daughter died, and then like had a horribly depressed like later career, like just barely making it. Really sad life, but like super creative guy who did wonderful characters, and was like one of the reasons why I always talk about the association of like the Captain Marvel franchise with Superman, and why I think that they are more linked than what people really want to give them credit for, is that I often feel that Superman got the Silver Age that Captain Marvel was due, in large part because Otto Binder went from working on Captain Marvel books and worked on Superman stuff. So a lot of like the really creative stuff of the 50s and 60s would have been Captain Marvel stuff, but that book was canceled. And also I know that there's a huge community that I used to be a part of that like is like very incensed about that all, and it's like they're not the same character. And I know. but sometimes you just have to like let ideas flow back and forth between properties and just sort of accept it. It's kind of the way. We haven't talked about Quantum Mania yet, by the way. I just realized, like, did you actually check that out?
No.
I'm just going to say a lot of people are like hating on it, and I will agree it's not a good Ant-Man movie, but it is a very good Fantastic Four movie, and I am here for that. And like sometimes you just have to be like, well, you know what? It's the best Fantastic Four movie I've gotten outside of like The Incredibles.
Not the fantastic movie we hoped for.
True, but it's a really good Fantastic Four movie. And likewise, like sometimes creators like move around and they like work their ideas into a thing, and you just kind of have to accept that it's a frame by which they tell stories through. And a lot of those properties. Kid Eternity, Otto Binder character from the 40s, like awesome deep cut character. I probably have seen 3 panels with this character, but I remember that from like the first issue of JSA when they're like going around killing creatures of fate.
I was like, so he was killed by accident, and they were like, it's not your time. We're sorry. How about you go back and we're going to give you this superpower that, you know, anytime you need help or something, to say the words eternity and bring somebody back from like the far past or whatever, and they can help you out with whatever you need. How about that? How's that sound, kid?
Yeah. Oh shit! I just saw his like name and I was like, I wonder. Oh yeah, he's the brother of Captain Marvel Jr.
Yeah.
That's fucking dope. Okay, cool.
I was like, that's okay. That's kind of cool. It was like they were like, "Oops, sorry, our bad."
Yeah, I want to say Grant Morrison brought him back in the 80s, but maybe. Yeah, I was right. Yeah, he had a miniseries with Grant Morrison. Nice. Deep pulls, man.
I was like looking up characters. I'm like going down like.
No, I'm talking about me. like the fact that I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure he had a Grant Morrison series. Yep. I feel good about that. Cool. All right. This one I feel good about because at least I'm like, oh yeah. No, I had his powers right. I had like the basic shtick, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember like where he died, and I remember a couple of big important things, and a couple of details where I'm like, whatever. Like, but I feel pretty good.
I feel like you would know about this guy, Captain Comet case.
We've talked about Captain Comet.
I know.
No, I mean like on this pop quiz.
Oh, we have? No.
Yeah, we did a pop quiz where I talked about Captain Comet. Because Captain Comet, first of all, he has appeared a couple of times, and one time was in the New 52 Grant Morrison Action Comics run.
Oh.
Sort of. Like, the idea is that Captain Comet was born under a comet that caused him to be an evolved human like 1,000 generations beyond. He has the basic power set that you would expect for a future human, which is psionic abilities, telepathy and telekinesis, although in the 2000s he also developed the ability to teleport. And yeah, a big hero of
The future.
like, yeah, save the day type character. He's in that same bracket as like the Martian Manhunter of these like 50s, very early Silver Age characters who were struggling to identify themselves before like the really big hits, like the Green Lanterns, kind of like locked down like what the Silver Age DC was going to look like. Captain Comet was also featured in the Golden Age that we referenced earlier. He's the hero that shows up at the very end and gets kicked in the crotch by Dynaman. But cool power set. Like I said, there's a version that shows up in New 52 Action Comics where there's like a rumor of a Superman who appears before Superman, and they like confront each other, and it, you know, doesn't go well because he's crazy. But yeah, he's like a super evolved human with psychic powers. He, I believe, was with Starfire and Animal Man in the 52 when they were doing like this like Odyssey style kind of adventure to get back home from like being trapped in outer space. And I'm just trying to remember other appearances for the character. Again, he's just never been able to like really cement himself because he's a Superman type character who has like X-Men powers. Like, you know, like it's the telepathic and telekinetic. He often is out in space. He was part of the Legion, like Legion, like Brainiac 2's team in the 90s that are like the Legion of Superheroes, but they're mercenaries and they're like police, like that like Keith Giffen was running at the time. So he's like tied into like DC space stuff. So like if he was a Marvel character, he would be showing up in Guardians of the Galaxy kind of character. And then in Kingdom Come, his death at the end of issue 3 is what kicks off the breakout of the Gulag that Superman then has to race in, and like everything's going crazy and Captain Marvel shows up and it all goes bad. But he's written out pretty quickly because, for one thing, if you catch him off guard, you can kill him. And for another, having that many Superman type characters, even if his powers are slightly different, but they're not, like they're like a lot of his powers can be like, oh, I guess you could just do it telekinetically. He's that character. so if you ever just wanted to not have Silver Age Superman, you could just slot Captain Comet in if you wanted to. But I'm almost positive we did a pop quiz with him.
Probably did, but I was like,
already.
Like the picture I saw, he looked really cool, and I was like, that's an awesome picture. I'm going to talk about this guy.
Yeah.
Actually, I had a random one that I wanted to see if you knew about. There's this guy called Johnny Sorrow.
I know that name. Hang on. We agreed that
Yes.
I am allowed to do an image search just to refresh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because we were just talking about JSA stuff, and he's a JSA villain. So he put together the Injustice Society, which was like a team of like all the big villains for each of the JSA members, which included like Rival and like Icicle Jr., I think, and like like all that. And if I remember correctly, it's like he's a mask with no like head attached to it, but if he takes the mask off, it's like Eldritch Horrors like spews out kind of character.
I feel like I've seen a parody of that somewhere.
He feels like Chairface Chippendale.
I think it was a Futurama episode where they parodied something up about him. It was a Calculon and him were going to like an acting duel. I forget, it was a long time ago. But I was like, that sounds interesting. It's like he just straight up doesn't have a face.
Yeah, he also kind of reminds me of Hexadecimal from Reboot.
Huh.
Although in that case, the mask was, you know, able to be swapped out. And there's like certainly a type of a look to him that could also make you think of Psycho Pirate, who would also wear masks, even though that's not a required part of the costume. But yeah, so Johnny Sorrow is usually depicted as like a guy in a suit, except he's wearing gloves and he has like an invisible head and has this like mask on. If he takes the mask off, there's like spewing out like chaos energies and terrible shit. And he's got some magic powers like teleportation and shit. I don't remember the specifics. I would imagine he's a Fate character if I had to guess, and probably like Lords of Chaos kind of thing. But I don't know for sure, and I don't want to like commit to that one.
It was like he just takes the mask off and it's like blah behind. Terrifying, but interesting. Yeah, I had one more.
Sure.
And it's another Legion character. I saw the name and I looked it up and I just started laughing because I was like, this is a weird character. His name is Matter Eater Lad.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah, okay, so... Fuck, man. Matter Eater Lad, I love. Okay, so... His name says what his powers are. Let's start there. His power is that he can eat everything. Like anything, he can eat it. It's fine.
It's like, what the heck?
He comes from a world that has like no nutrients, and so they have to like get whatever they can from whatever they can eat. That's his deal. He can eat through anything. That's his power. He's usually wearing a green costume and sunglasses. He's usually kind of a comic relief character, as you would infer from his whole shtick being that he can eat anything. If I remember correctly, in the reboot era of the Legion, he was their chef. And, like, sometimes he even shows up as part of, like, the subs, or at least, like, a reject, because, like, his powers are, oh, yeah, I just can start chomping down on stuff. I gotta say, the most important period for him, for me, is 5-year gap. He hosts this, like, Ripley's Believe It or Not style show, and, like, at one point is doing an excavation of what is clearly the Batcave, and is just like, these giant pennies. Maybe there was a race of giants at one point that lived on Earth. And, like, it's everything he says is just insane. But he's also using it as a way to, like, get onto Earth, even though it's controlled by the Dominators, because it's like, well, but we're filming a show here. And it's like, he pulls an Argo before Argo in it as a way of, like, helping lead the insurrection on Earth, but under the guise of, like, having this goofy reality TV show.
Can he eat, like, say, for instance, they're in a big fight and somebody throws a grenade? Can he eat the grenade? I mean, he can eat anything.
That's a good question. I mean, I think so, because he's eaten energy stuff before. So, yes, I think so. And also, like, the grenade part of it, he can certainly eat the chemicals that are part of the grenade. And also, a grenade is mostly dangerous because of the shrapnel coming off of it. That's why it's got the like, weird studded shell on the outside. It's because those break apart and, like, fly in and turn basically into razor blades. So I would say yes. I feel like that's the type of thing I've seen him do before.
I was like, I just have so many questions. Like, what is the limit of things that he can actually eat without him harming himself?
There's a reason why he's not, like, aggressively used as a serious character in modern comics. Like, he's legitimately a, like, don't think about it. Like, it's funny. Like, kind of character.
I guess, like, like, the most important, like, role for him to be would be, like, a chef. Like, on Iron Chef, he'd, like...
Well, yeah, it's like, here's a bag of rocks and some rancid fruit and also some plutonium. Make a dish. And he's like, I've made pasta for my people.
I was like, that's awesome. It's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think his deal was that he was used kind of like a Neelix type character from Star Trek Voyager, where, like, he could make food, but it would be, like, horrible and everyone would complain about the cooking type character.
Well, I guess it just wouldn't matter to him because he's just going to eat no matter what.
Nothing matters to that lad.
Like, his superpower allows him to eat anything and everything.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
If he were ever to be trapped, he could always just eat his way out.
You have to understand, comics are very fucking weird.
I forgot that point. You're absolutely right.
Oh, I just clicked to see, like, all right, is there a weakness? It says he can't eat organic matter on his home world because adapting to the toxic planet is the original reason why they eat inorganic matter. So organic matter from his home world is all, like, super toxic to him. And regular organic matter is unpleasant.
He can't, like, have burgers or fries or anything. It's got to be, like, concrete.
I mean, he can, but it's just like, what the? Ew. A French fry with ketchup. Ugh. Of a rock.
I'll have my concrete souffle over here, please. Thank you very much.
Yep, basically.
Huh. That's so weird. It's so yeah, that's all my characters I had for you, Case.
All right. This is going to be some interesting episode art. It's like Matter Eater Lad, like, because his powers are all just, like, eating shit, some of it's, like, very suggestive artwork. So it's going to be a really funny, like, thing to pull that one.
I want his face to be like the episode art.
Yeah, I mean,
a picture of him looking back, like looking over his shoulder with his glasses on.
Yeah, all right. Well, so I feel like that was a pretty mixed bag of results on my end. There's no one that I was, like, completely unfamiliar with, but you did have a couple that I was like, I have a basic description and that's it. Like, Rainbow Girl and Coagula are both, like, ones that I'm like, all right, Coagula is like, okay, yes. And it took a minute. And Rainbow Girl, it's like, well, you already said it's a Legion, and I'm going to guess it's a substitute.
Substitute heroes need love too, sir.
No, I totally agree. It's just, like, somehow, like, one of the substitutes that I knew less. Because, like, I knew Night Girl and Polar Boy right off the top of my head, and Stone Boy, like, an Infectious Lad. So it's just, like, funny where it's, like, one where I just don't know that one that well. The extra credit with you asking me the same character twice is a good one.
Gotta keep you on your toes, Case.
Yeah. Has he forgotten about this one? Does he still remember who Superman is? Find out next time.
Hey, man, you can't be too sure these days. Yeah. Gotta make sure.
No, this was fun. I'm glad we did another one of these. Like I said, it's been a long time since the last pop quiz. Yeah. And these are always just kind of like fun ones that we can kind of do when we're worried about life events getting in the way. So I'm glad to be here. I hope everyone kind of enjoyed me stumbling through a few of those and ranting way too long about Jesse Quick.
You pretty much nailed these.
But yeah, when you're listening to this, I hopefully am a father. There is always the chance that things don't go great, but like everything seems fine. The baby's doing fine.
Exude positivity here, Case.
Yeah. No, my nickname for the baby has been Shy Halud because she is kicking a lot. And the kicks are this like bump that comes up like on my wife's stomach and like moves around. And so it looks like a sandworm from Dune, just like moving around. It's wild. And like I told my cousin about this and I mentioned that part and he's like, you can see the foot? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, can you see the toes? I'm like, no, it's just like a giant bump. But it looks like fucking Bugs Bunny. Like when like traveling around. Like,
oh man.
It's really wild and I'm very excited to meet her. We are recording this on Thursday, March 16th, and she is scheduled to be induced on Tuesday. So it won't be that night because that's not how pregnancies work. It might be the next day. It might be like Thursday or Friday because sometimes it can be like a couple days.
Trust me. I was one of those kids.
We'll see. Yeah. And it's our first child. So like, there's all that. But like, that's coming soon. And that's real weird. That's real weird.
Gonna be a dad case.
Yeah. Pat Edwards, who is like the super dad of our podcast network, called me up yesterday. And like we talk all the time, but like he called me up just to be like, I think like Graham like had an accident or something. Graham is his most recent son. His only son, but his most recent child, like who is a baby. And he had like a potty accident and he was like changing the diaper and he was like, I fucking love this kid. And and he called me up to be like, hey, yeah, like even in these moments, you're like, just know that like you'll feel it and you'll just like fucking love this kid. And I was like, thanks, man. I really appreciate like all the positivity there. So very excited for it. We'll see what episodes of our show actually come out in this sort of proximity. I have a feeling that we're not going to get to our media roundup anytime soon. But I hope you listeners stay tuned. We do have a couple of episodes banked, so this is just one of them. That's why I'm like not entirely sure what the order is going to be at this point. But we've got a lot of fun stuff. We're not really planning on taking a hiatus because I'm insane. And also, like, there's a lot of movies that we can watch and not go to theaters movies, but like there's stuff we'll be able to watch and I'm looking forward to talking about a few of those things. So expect us to actually have Superman 4 up sometime soon. Expect us to actually talk about some of the animated stuff because especially after watching Death of Superman, I really want to look at some of that material. So I think that's like really good for us to take a look at. And yeah, we're going to try to keep going. We're going to at some point talk about Superman and Lois. I really like season 2, but we actually haven't talked about it on the show. And that was supposed to be part of our media roundup. And now season 3 is out. So we'll have a lot to talk about there. Yeah. Jmike, is there anything that you want to plug right now? Anything you got going on?
Not at the moment. I actually thought about getting into streaming. I had a lot of fun with you guys and Matt. I thought that'd be a cool thing to do. So that might be something I'm thinking about in the future.
And that would probably make it likely to actually happen as opposed to like just relying on one person to be doing the stream. Like it was so much fun doing that stream. And like Moonen and I on Discord were like going off on like ideas for games, especially ones that had like movie tie-ins that we could do. That would be really fun to talk about. But there's so many fun games that if you're not concerned about winning, like if you're like, you can just be like, look at all the cool shit and like have a bunch of people talk about it. It was a lot of fun. I highly encourage people, if they listen to our episode talking about the death and return of Superman, to go and check out that stream. It's actually really fun just to like listen to, like our chatter was really good. And like the game is really visually pleasing to look at. Like it's a pretty small game, but like the actual like pixel art is really nice. And like there's a lot of like cool things going on with it. So it's cool to check out. And if you're not worried about like the crushing, brutal difficulty of it, hey, it's like fun to look at. And we had a really good time just like spending 2 hours just being like, man, this video game would be really hard if we didn't have the Game Genie cheats on.
Yeah, that game was never going to get beat if we didn't do that. It's just hard on purpose.
Oh, no. We looked it up. Was it like 2 megs or 4 megs, something like that? Yeah. It was like comically small for like a Super Nintendo game of that particular like year.
I was laughing about it later.
And cross-platform.
Well, it's one of those games that was meant to be an arcade, but instead they just ported it to like Sega. Super Nintendo.
Right.
Because you could clearly tell, like, that was made to eat quarters.
Yeah. Yeah, so I hope people check that out. It was over on the Fun and Games YouTube channel is where that footage is posted. So check that out. Matt had been our longtime editor, so it was fun having them on to, like, see how well they remember the stuff that we had just talked about. And Geoff is our current editor. So, it's our sibling show. So absolutely go check that out. Check out their YouTube. There's a lot of fun stuff going on there. And then we also support it over on the Certain POV YouTube channel because we've got the side quest there. So check that out. Like, Fun and Games is a great show. It's the show that like really expanded the network from being like a bunch of spin-offs a certain point of view to actually like incorporating other shows. So it's one that we always want to support because it's been such a positive endeavor in a space that is often very hostile. Like video game journalism often could be not super friendly to people. So check that out. Check out what we've got going on for other stuff. Another pass right now. Once we hit 150 episodes, we started putting out retrospectives on the early episodes because Sam joined with episode 101 and so didn't have a chance to like talk about a lot of these movies. And a lot of the movies we hit at the beginning were movies that were like, yeah, this is obviously a thing we're going to talk about. So like Star Trek 09, for example, or Mallrats with Geoff, or Return of the Jedi. So we've been doing those retrospectives and those have been a lot of fun as bonus episodes in the off weeks between regular episodes because again, I am insane. I am about to have a child, and I'm like, how can I record more podcasts? I don't know. But I'm doing it. So please listen. Please. But check all that out. That's at certainpov.com. You can also find a link to our Discord server there where you can come interact with us directly. I might say stuff to you in a very sleep-deprived way. It's going to be really funny to see what kind of messages I have because, like, already I'm at the point where I'm like, my ADD and my dyslexia are kicking in, like, whoa, when I'm, like, reading messages. So we'll see what like, you might be like, Case, what do you think of this thing? And I'll be like, I like dogs. We'll see what the responses are. So come interact, check in with me, see how fatherhood is doing, and get sneak peeks for the other stuff that we have going on. Like there's so many great shows. We have so many great discussions going on now because we have like a wonderful range of genres represented. Like the music channel has gotten really active since we brought on Jukebox Vertigo. So really cool conversations. I highly recommend people check out our Discord server. It's not as active as some of the other crazy ones where you like go on and like if you posted on a thread and you check back an hour later, you have to go digging just to find like responses to what you had said. It's a good flow. Like there's enough conversation that you feel like there's a conversation going on, but it's also not so much that you can't keep up with what is being said. So it's a great space in that regard. And I really enjoy it and is not as overwhelming as many of the Discord servers that I am currently on. So again, that you can find at certainpov.com as well as all the other great shows that we have on the network. And yeah, until next time, stay super. Man.
Men of Steel is a Certain POV production. Our hosts are Jmike Folsom and Case Aiken. The show is scored and edited by Geoff Moonen. And our logo and episode art is by Case Aiken. But can he drink acid?
Well, that's the question. If it's organic acid, probably not. If it's inorganic acid, yes. What I'm saying is that if it was like orange juice, probably would give him a stomach ache, but like hydrochloric acid, not so much. Like that would be fine. He'd be like, yum. Lemonade, fuck that.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
Immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun. Whatever fun is to you.
I'm Geoff Moonen,
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
and on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there, so we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Geoff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.
CPOV.
CertainPOV.com.